Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne,
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs.
down to Biscayne.
Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about to have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to another post-game edition of 5 on the Floor. I come to you frustrated. Greg Sylvander following the New York Knicks victory over the Heat in overtime, 116-112. Tonight's floor playing with me, Digital Adele. We are going to talk about this game, which, I mean, Miami had, what, a 19-point lead? It may have been more than that, honestly. We were on playback, so I didn't take notes.
It's a 19-point lead. Yeah, the biggest lead was 19.
Another home game that you could have won. This was another game against an Eastern Conference team that was ahead of you in the standings, just like Indiana was. You had a chance to get this victory, and you let it slip. And they let the fourth quarter and overtime. The Knicks just made more plays. We're going to get into all that. But before we do, want to tell you about Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99. That's how you sign up. The link is in the description of this episode. It is the most heat anywhere. You want to go there to talk Miami Heat 24/7. There are a bunch of different channels. You can talk draft if you want to look ahead. You can talk about just Miami Heat topics in general in the main thing chat. This is where you want to be for Miami Heat basketball, the most heat anywhere, Off the Floor, $2.99, link in the description. So Adele, I know that social media was ablaze of why didn't Ware play more down the stretch. We're going to get to that. Your initial thoughts on this game that Miami had control of, ultimately let New York hang around. New York is a team that now has reached the 40 win mark. So they're what now, 40-20, I believe. So they're legit in the Eastern Conference. I don't know that they're Cleveland and Boston legit, but they're legit. You played them tough. This game went to overtime, but you felt like you kind of left something on the table here. Your initial thoughts before we dive into the player of the game and such.
My initial thoughts are that the New York Knicks have Jalen Brunson, who is a certified bucket getter that can lead your franchise. The chat says, why does he always shoot early like always? I mean, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is the shot selection. My guy Major chiming in too from the audience. And one of the things about Ware, whenever he got injured, and I don't want to get too much into that, but it just highlighted the need this team has for quality bigs to play with Bam, so he doesn't have to try to do everything on the glass. Because Miami ended up getting dominated in second chance points. The New York Knicks had 19. The Miami Heat only had 8 second chance points, and the Heat ended up losing this game, largely due to bad shot selection down the stretch. And then lack of inside rebounding and presence down the stretch. They didn't have anybody that could stop Brunson when he decided to go to the rim at the end of that OT. He was getting to the rim at will, getting his shots at will at the end of that overtime period. So those are the things that really stood out to me with this team and with this game in particular for how the New York Knicks were able to dominate that second half. Because the first half was all the Miami Heat. They had that 16-point lead. Ware was just absolutely everywhere, which we're going to talk about. And Duncan Robinson, too, I believe, is a big part of this team. He kind of trailed off down the stretch where he wasn't getting the touches and being able to facilitate. his ability to move without the basketball and his decision making in the pick and roll, I think is highly underrated by a lot of people. And I think he was fantastic in that first half. Absolutely. All around, he really rounded out his game. Every year he comes back with something new.
You mentioned the rebounding, 46-34. New York had the advantage there. That's something that's difficult to overcome. Yet the Heat were in this game. They were up for most of it. And I think that that's where it feels kind of gutting you feel gutted as a Heat fan, is that this was a winnable game against a higher seed in the Eastern Conference on your home floor and you let it slip. And so I want to really dive into how that happened. Because there's a lot of theories why, and we talked about it on playback with, them maybe leaning into Bam a little bit more. And I think that that's a good segue into the player of the game, because there were a couple guys at the top of the roster I want to talk about. We'll also acknowledge the New York Knicks, but not too much. Let's get to the Insurance by Lynette, aggressive player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So, Jalen Brunson ultimately got to 31 points tonight. It was overtime. He was 3 of 11 from 3. This wasn't his best game. I'm acknowledging the New York Knicks there. Now I want to talk about Bam, who 30 points, 12 of 16. He had it from the mid-range going. He was looking really comfortable. Also had 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He's playing better and better. Got to the free throw line 8 times. There were moments down the stretch I think that they could have gone to him more. What do you think that there is a legitimate case to be made that they should be running every play late in games through Bam Adebayo? Like that should be a trigger point to everything that they do? Or am I being too biased as a Bam Adebayo fan myself?
I don't think you're being biased, but I also don't think that's the way you run this basketball team. But on this night in particular, he needed to touch the ball every time down. He had it going. He was shooting 75% from the field. They were running that pin down middle screen for him to pop up at the free throw line, and he was doing whatever he wanted to whatever Nick decided to guard him. OG Anunoby, Mitchell, it didn't matter. He just had his way with those guys all night. So this game, yes, you gotta kind of play that by ear. Who has the hot hand? And he absolutely had it going. Every night, I don't think you do it every night. It's going to be matchup dependent. There's a lot of different factors that are going to go into it, how the defense is playing, how they adjust, and all that. So I think you have a good sentiment for this game. I just don't think you can project that to every game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Karl Anthony Towns, 19 and 16. He was 6 of 11 from the field. He played well. I'm not a big Karl Anthony Towns fan. We're going to move on from there. I shall not go further. Deuce McBride, he feels like a Heat killer. Like that just feels natural. There were moments today where I thought he did some of that, and OG played well. So, this was a good New York basketball team. I think that they are a notch below the top of the Eastern Conference, but it is a good measuring stick game for the Heat, and the Heat are not far off. Who else? Let's talk Tyler for a moment. Really inefficient again.
Yeah.
Is that the defense that they're throwing at him? I mean, who was the primary guy? Was it Josh Hart that they put on him? Or
they were putting a variety of
player?
different guys on him, and they were blitzing him a lot. They were running 2 and 3 guys at him at times. So it isn't just that he's playing poorly. It's that he's getting the majority of the focus of the defensive coverages. And this highlights what a 1A player goes through on a nightly basis compared to your second best guy on a winning team. And Hero really pressed down the stretch when Bam had it going. His shot selection was really bad. I mean, he was taking some really wild shots. I mean, the backcourt of not getting over the backcourt in 8 seconds, inexcusable down the stretch. I know he made up for it with a big shot, but then in overtime, Bam made like 4 straight shots. He decides to chuck a floater against double team. I remember one drive, I can't remember if it was in overtime or the second half, he tried to shoot a floater over 3 different guys. Like, somebody's open. You got to be a better team player than that. I'm not saying Tyler's a completely selfish player. He's got supreme confidence in himself. But when you're a pro, man, you got to really understand what the defense is trying to do to take you away. And you got to be able to facilitate at the right moments and take your shots at the right moment. So I just think he's struggling a little bit. Win the pass and win the shoot, to be honest with you. Like that's where I'm coming down on all this.
And that's an interesting thing to talk about. I mean, he had 7 assists and 0 turnovers. So on the surface, that looks like a
how do you have 0 turnovers when you got an 8-second call? That's a turnover, right?
I don't know how that works. I'm looking at the box score now, and it has 0.
It says 0, right? So, that's weird. Yeah, that's weird.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's a team turnover or something like that, kind of like a team foul,
right? Or anyway, a team rebound, right?
That's a pod for another day. Hero on the surface, like when you just look at the box score, as we box score watch post game. I know there's so many fans out there that hate box score watchers. I'm doing that now. Hero looks like, he had an inefficient offensive game, but facilitated well. I thought that the way that he picked his spots late in this game, that's what irked me. Like, that's 100%. Where you have to have a little bit more awareness of who to go to when. It was a moment there where Bam was really cooking, and I thought that they could have extended that. They did not. And there was another guy that was absent for a lot of the fourth quarter that then was played throughout overtime, and it was our guy Eternal on playback. Join us for playback, by the way. Everybody should check that out. We have a lot of fun talking hoops and a bunch of other stuff as we watch the Heat. Eternal mentioned, like, why would you go to him late? Like, what would be the reasoning behind being comfortable with playing him in overtime, but not playing him throughout the fourth quarter?
Talking about Kello Ware?
Kello Ware is where I'm going with that. Let's start here. I want to talk about his first half because his first half was phenomenal. We're going to use the X-ray of the play of the day to get into that. That's from Mobile C. Armin Staffing. Let's get to it.
And now it's time for the X-ray of the play of the day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C. Armin Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-arminstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C. Armin Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-ray of the play of the day.
So the Kello Ware windmill was nice. There were a lot of plays above the rim. I think he had 5 or 6 dunks at least in this game. Did he end with 6 blocks? Let me look here. Yeah, 6 blocks. That's a career high. Kello Ware played really well. I think we can identify that dunk as probably the play of the night from the Heat's perspective. But your thoughts on him late in games, like the way that Spoelstra is managing him. Do you think that there's something that could be done differently? Do you see the reasoning behind why, independent of maybe that he could be injured? I think that we should qualify what we're talking about is that we don't know if for some reason he's labored by something that's keeping him out for an extended stretch of the game. Like, I want to just preface by saying, like, if that comes out, then it will negate some of this because it takes the thought out of why it's happening. But are you seeing anything different that you think is the reason why he's not playing late? Why did we not see him late in the fourth quarter in this game?
Well, I think it's when it comes to a young rookie like that, it's going to be a night to night, basis of how he's playing and what the coaching staff sees and what they're asking him to do. So, for example, the previous game, he played a not so good first half, right? Spo took him out of the game. He comes back in the game. All of a sudden, his rebound production picks up. His effort level picks up. That carried over into this game, right? Like, He came out with his hair on fire. The energy level was great. He was flying around, lobs, blocks, rebounds. In the second half of the game, at the very end, I know you're going to say, like, we don't have an official report on the injury, but we all saw the replay. He got rolled up on by Mitchell. He had a humongous ice pack on his knee. And the perplexing part was he sat for a good 10-minute stretch where they could have used him. And then he came back into the game late at right before overtime. That's the puzzling part. If he was injured enough not to play throughout the entire game, why did Spo decide to put him back out there at the end of the fourth quarter and start overtime, and then he disappears for the rest of the game? So that's a question we're going to have to get answered. I didn't see anything with his play that would have dictated he should have came out of the game. Like I said, this was probably one of my favorite games I've watched him play. Not from the stat standpoint, but the effort, the intensity, the movement, like just being in the right spots. He was playing a heck of a ball game. Probably his best ball game I've seen him play all season.
Vertical spacing. He provides it. He gets up high in a way that nobody else on this roster can. It gives angles to the offense that nobody else can provide. And I think that that's valuable for a team that needs to find easy baskets, and throwing it directly up to where, as he just dunks it, is about as easy a basket as you can find. There's been comments tonight for our podcast audience. We are live, so we're getting comments here. So some of this we're reacting as we go. There's a lot of talk of Terry Rozier playing over Davion Mitchell tonight. And I don't know where the hell that's coming from, but I want to just right straight up from the top say that is crazy talk. Davion Mitchell had 37 minutes tonight. Terry Rozier had 15. I hope that the disparity grows greater in Davion Mitchell minutes to Terry Rozier. I don't care what Terry did tonight. There were moments where he obviously looked a little bit more under control. He looked a little bit more grounded in that he wasn't taking the step back that you thought he was going to.
Right.
But Adele, am I crazy here? Like, there is no planet where, for instance, a player like Tyler Hero is better offensively next to Terry Rozier. Like, this should be about Spo playing Davion as much as possible to see exactly what he has, right?
It should be, but the other thing we got to understand is that when we look at the guards that are left, it's Tyler, it's Davion, and it's Rozier. There are really no other guards on the roster. All the rest are just wings and bigs. So
is it Josh Christopher's season soon?
I mean, I got my own thoughts on Josh Christopher. I wish that kid the best, but no, it's not Josh Christopher season. In my opinion. But the guard, I mean, Rozier actually didn't even play that bad tonight. And I'm one of the biggest critics on this network of Rozier, like from beginning before it was cool.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was really a matter of that. Like, you look at his minutes at, 15 minutes in a 48-minute game is not a lot. Like, it just isn't. You got to give these guys a break or they're going to wear down. That's the big thing with Tibbs, right? Everybody talks about the coach for the Knicks. He runs his players into the ground because they play 45 minutes a night. You can't do that. They're going to get injured. They're going to wear down. It just isn't going to work. So I understand the sentiment. Nobody wants to see the guard, Terry Rozier on the bench more than me, but he wasn't played like this crazy out of proportion number of minutes tonight. And he really didn't play particularly horrendously. He didn't play great. I mean, he was 0 for 2 from 3 and 33% from the field. So it is what it is, but it was only 15 minutes is my point.
Yeah, this is true. I want less Terry and more Davion Mitchell. But I guess that's an episode for another day. Let's get to the Defending the House segment from Real Estate Shop.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at the Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The real estate shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
So any assignments you would have changed tonight? Haywood Highsmith had some interesting moves. They went to the zone at interesting times late in that game. Anything you would have done differently? You're on mute.
The only thing I would have done differently is to try to find a way to get Bam on Brunson in the overtime period. I like Highsmith, but I still think Bam's our best individual defender, most talented defender. And I would have liked to see him matched up more. I know that it's very difficult whenever you don't have Ware at your disposal really late in that overtime. But that's really the only thing. I mean, Spo's still one of the best coaches in the league, despite what you're going to hear. I know I haven't been a fan of all the moves. He hasn't had a great season, but even Spo's great season, not so great seasons are better than most coaches in the league. Just the way it is. But yeah, I would have preferred to see Bam switch out on Brunson, but teams also get paid too, right? So they do a great job of keeping Bam out of the play. And if Bam is the primary defender, then they're just going to get him in the screen and roll action. He's one thing about Bam, great as he is as an individual defender, weak side defender, he's still like 6'10", right? Like he's still a big guy. It's hard for him to navigate around screens. So when they put him in screen and rolls, they can still screen him out of the play for where he's the primary defender. So if you don't have somebody like Ware or Wiggins to negate that, you end up in these situations.
Yeah, and those matchups, it's tough to work through that. They had a limited cast of characters. We should reiterate, Jaime Jaquez missed tonight. Andrew Wiggins missed tonight. They were both out with ankle injuries.
Jovic
Jovic is obviously out. So they're missing a lot of key components, but they're trying to figure out, a go forward strategy to get through this March stretch and try to gain back as many games as possible. Try to stay in that 7 seed. If you try to creep up on the 6 seed, that would be great. I think that's a little, like they need to focus on just holding on to 7 right now.
Right.
And, this was a game I thought that they could have built upon, coming off the Indiana win. This was a game that they let slip. It was played at the Heat's pace. New York averages 117, 118 a game. They got to 116 tonight in overtime. So this was played at the pace that the Heat could have won tonight, but they ultimately did not. It's a tough one to swallow because, you had this game, you were up 19, but you know what? This is what's good about the NBA. They play tomorrow night against the Washington Wizards, so they can hopefully have short memories, go out there, get that game. Adele, any final thoughts before we close up shop? Thank you to our sponsors. Shout out to A Aggressive Insurance, Real Estate Shop, and Mobile C-Arm and Staffing. Final thoughts, Adele.
My final thoughts whenever we talk about the overall standing for the Miami Heat is that it's going to be an uphill battle the entire season because the team is an average team when you look at the way the roster is currently constructed. And they have the Orlando Magic in front of them. They have the Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers, as well as the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, that's a tough hill to climb when you look at how those teams are constructed compared to the Miami Heat. Because, like, let's take Detroit, for example. Cade Cunningham is the number one guy in Detroit. No offense to Tyler, but Cade's going to be your better leading man when you're talking about leading a franchise. Shocker, right? And so it's just going to be a tough battle. So I just want the fans to continue to know that this team's going to continue to fight. They're going to give it everything they have. But at the end of the day, they are what their record says they are.
at the
That's where
end
we're
of the
at.
day, an Alex Toledo reference to close out the show. Adele, thank you for your time. Again, just to recap the score, the Miami Heat lose. Knicks 112, Knicks 116, Miami 112. That is the final in OT. Miami did cover though, but that's another conversation. We'll let that go. We will have you covered for Washington tomorrow night. Ethan will be back in the fold tomorrow night with me on the podcast, I believe. Have a great night. Peace out, Adele. And yeah, this is a tough one, but they play tomorrow. Let's hope that they get it.
Let's hope. See you.